Welcome back to you, Trinidad and Tobago. This is, of course, the Now program, and Ria filling in for apparently this week, and glad to be here this morning as we are going to find out about something that I think maybe not many Trinidadians, Trinbagonians know about, because I was even being asked a question here if we've actually got that here in Trinidad and Tobago, and the answer is yes. I'm talking about foster care and adoption, something that you hear about it more in the US all the time, foster care, adoption, but how much do you really hear about it in Trinidad and Tobago? But we do have it here, and to tell us more about that, we do have with us Anjali Tewari, who is the team leader of the foster care unit of the Children's Authority, and Renee, Neptune, who is the adoption manager, the acting adoption manager, also of the Children's Authority. So let me say good morning, welcome ladies, glad to have you this morning to tell us all about this, to tell us how we as Trinbagonians can either adopt if we want to adopt or foster a child. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks so much for having us.
Oh, it is a pleasure, because I think we need to know about this. We need to know that this is an option, and we need to know that we can actually get involved to help children who really basically need that parenting, need that love, need that home. So tell us a little bit about, there's a difference between adoption and foster care.
Yes.
Tell us before we get into adoption, what exactly is foster care?
Right, I'm glad you led with that question, because a lot of people always mix up the two. So foster care is a temporary care arrangement. So if a child cannot stay with their family, their birth families, for a variety of reasons, whether they're in danger, at risk of being abused, we have to remove them temporarily and place them with a safe family. So that's where foster care sort of kicks in. We need those temporary care arrangements while we continue to do our investigations, while we continue to look for relatives. And that's when we need those safe, warm, loving families to step up and open their hearts and homes.
But you say that the children removed from the families if they are endangered, and where are they put?
Yeah, and that's actually a good point, because a lot of people think that we just move children willy-nilly. We have no reason. But we only actually remove children if we see that there's risk or if there's any harm going on. We do our thorough investigations. And then when we do have to remove them, the first point of call is we always look for family members and fit persons first. We look for any family members to come forward to volunteer, and then we do our relevant checks to ensure that it's a safe environment. And only then, when we cannot find any of those, we look for our foster families. We look at our register of approved foster care providers, and then we can do our matches to see where a child can fit in.
If it is that you cannot find a relative or a family member to take care of the child, how can someone else get involved to foster a child? What does it take for an individual or a family or a couple to foster a child?
So we really ask persons to give us a call, have a chat with us first, find out what foster care is, make sure that you can commit to this. Once you come to us and you have love in your hearts, we always ask that to be the forefront, the most important thing. Come to us, let us do our checks. We have a list of checks that we have to do mandated by legislation to ensure that these are safe homes we're placing our children in. We do our home assessments, in-depth interviews, background checks, our basic training. We do that list of checks, and once you are approved, you're added to our list. So we can go to this list whenever we get a call for placement.
Is there any period of time that fosters take, a year, or how long you may have a child fostering?
So you can actually have the many different types of foster care. So when we say the term temporary, this can actually range from as short as a day, a night, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years. So you let us know what type of foster care you're able to provide, and even a day, even a night can make a huge difference in a child's life. Consider if we find a child abandoned late at night, at least we know that that child can go into a safe, warm home, get a bed to sleep in, a warm meal in their tummies. So at least we know that even for that night, they were safe while we continue to look for their family members.
Is there a limit to how many children you can foster?
So it all really depends on your capacity. If it is that you have a lot of support and you have many rooms in your home, and we think that you have the necessary means to care for a child, we can actually have a group of children, maybe a group of siblings. So there's a limit in the sense that we have to look at your capacity and your support mechanisms. We don't want to overburden you or overwhelm you so that the individual is sort of floundering. We want to make sure you have that support and everything in place to care. So there's not a limit, but we probably wouldn't go beyond maybe about 6 or 7, depending on your home and your capacity.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, and I don't want this to be an encouragement to anyone, because as you said, you need to have some love and, caring and that dedication to want to foster a child. But is there any sort of governmental or any sort of if financial aid that is given to the families that are fostering children?
Yes, so when we come in to do our assessments, we ensure that the applicant can financially meet their own needs, so we can monitor and manage that the stipend that is provided by the foster care unit isn't abused. So the foster care stipend is provided for the child depending on their age, depending on their needs, but we do our monitoring and checks to ensure that the stipend isn't abused, because obviously we want to make sure that money is going towards the needs of the child.
And how can one be a foster parent? How does one get? You said they come to you. You have the where they go through all the checks and balances and all that type of thing. But if it is, it's like, I would really love to foster a child. I'd really like to help this child. Do they come to you directly? Is apply online? How is it done?
We ask applicants to give us a call on. I can actually give you details now on extension 627-0748. That's the authority's number. You can contact the foster care unit on extension 40988, or you can even send us an email at fostercare@ttchildren.org. Or get in contact with us. A member of my team can chat with you to find out if this is what you really want. And if not, we can actually refer you to the adoption unit. We walk you through the steps. You get sent an application package. You send us out your relevant forms, and then we go through the steps with you. And the length of time it takes to be assessed and approved really is dependent on the applicant. How quickly you collaborate with us, make yourselves available for the appointments, for the relevant interviews. And once we go through that process, we can determine whether you need to do any further actions to make yourself approvable, or if we can approve you in a short space of time.
Okay, so that's foster care, which is different from, of course, adoption. So, yes. Renee, Neptune, adoption. What is adoption and how is it different from foster care?
Okay, so adoption is quite different from foster care. As Anjali said, foster care is temporary, but adoption is permanent. Adoption is the legal transfer of parental rights and responsibilities from the birth parent of that child to another person or persons who we call the adopters. So whereas foster care is temporary, adoption gives a child a sense of permanence and belonging. So once that adoption is finalized and it is granted by the court, that child now becomes a permanent member of that family.
So how does a parent, or how do parents, and does it have to be a couple, or can it be an individual adopting a child?
So a couple can adopt, as well as a single person, either a male or female person can adopt.
What is the process like, though? And is it that you may find that, how are you finding couples or individuals coming to adopt children? And what is the process like? Because, we hear about these long, lengthy, tedious, and you have to go through all these different things, basically. What is that like?
So we do get both couples and single persons wanting to adopt. We get a mixture of both. And while persons may say that the process is lengthy, we have to ensure that it is a thorough process. We have to ensure that we are placing a child in a safe, loving, nurturing environment, because this is going to be their permanent homes. So even though the process may be lengthy, we do our thorough background checks, psychological assessments, a home assessment to ensure the environment is safe. All those things are carried out before we determine the suitability of someone before placing a child there.
Is there an age limit or an age, especially for individuals who may want to adopt a child?
So for a child to be adopted, that child has to be under the age of 18. And right now, there's no upper age limit in place for persons who want to adopt. However, There's no legislation in place for that, and we are guided by the adoption legislation. However, there may be policies and procedures which are presently being reviewed. So as of now, there is none, but that can possibly change in the future.
Can you give me an idea of how many children? I think I'd want the same thing for, well, I suppose it'd be for foster and adoption, because it will be the same children, basically, whether people want to foster care or adopt. But what is that like? How many children are there out there, basically, who need that loving family to be adopted?
Just to interject, we want to make sure it's clear that it's actually not the same pool of children who will be going on foster care and adoption.
Yeah.
So
because foster will be different from adoption.
Yeah, the children who come into foster care, we're actually still investigating to determine whether they can return to their families.
Yeah.
So their parents still have rights, their families still have rights, because we do feel children have a right to their families and vice versa. Whereas with adoption, in those cases, they would have received consent from the families, or the court would have dispensed consent to release those children for adoption. So it is a different pool of children.
Right.
But with regards to foster care at this point in time, we have approximately 78 children in foster care, and we have about 56 foster care providers across Trinidad and Tobago. We actually have 4 in Tobago, which we're really proud of. But even that number, that 56, it doesn't meet the need of placements that we require. We get so many calls for foster care placements, and as soon as they're available, pretty much get filled, which is why we really want to appeal to the public to come forward to fit those places.
And for adoption?
And with adoption, we do not actually have a wide pool of children, especially babies, to adopt. A lot of persons want babies, but we do not have a big pool of children. I know persons always say to us, but there's all these children in the homes, the children homes, what we call the community residences. Those children are actually not available for adoption. Reason being, for a child to be a candidate for adoption, they have to be freed for adoption, which is by the court. That is a legal process. And when I say a child has to be free, we have to find a child's parents, relatives. We have to get the necessary consent from them, relinquishing their parental rights before a child can be adopted. So the children that are in the community residences are not for adoption. And we are also appealing to birth parents who may be expecting. You know, sometimes there's a stigma attached to adoption and placing your child for adoption, but it's actually a very selfless act. So we are appealing to persons. Come to us and we will discuss the best placement option for your child. Again, it doesn't have to be adoption, it can be foster care, but we will discuss with you all. So rather than leaving your child abandoned, let's say in the hospital, in the bushes, feel free to come to us and we will discuss a best placement option.
One final quick question, and then I want you to let us know again. What is the age limit for people, though? Is there an age limit for people who want to adopt children?
Sure. So there is no upper age limit in place right now in the legislation for persons who want to adopt. However, the policies and procedures are presently being reviewed. So that may change in the future.
Okay.
But right now there is none.
Okay. And how can we get in touch with you once again, quickly?
Sure. So you can contact the adoption unit at 627-0748. The direct extensions are 40023, 40024, 40025, or adoption@ttchildren.org.
Okay, thank you so very much for telling us all about foster care and adoption in Trinidad and Tobago. Anjali Tewari, the team leader of the foster care unit of the Children's Authority, and Renee, Neptune, adoption manager also of the Children's Authority. So thank you. If you want to foster a child, you've got that love in your heart, you've got that, you know, that wanting, that need to be a parent, a child, foster caring the child, or if you want to adopt a child, please get in touch with the Children's Authority. We'll be back right after this.